for joining me. I really appreciate it. I love the backdrop, all the color, and anyway, it's a pleasure to engage with you today and to have a conversation about our experience together. I have great confidence that what we're about to talk about, whatever that life that takes on, is going to be valuable for visitors to take a peek at and relate to. So I'm grateful that you're willing to take some time. So
thank you for asking me. This is fun.
Okay, good. Yes, we will absolutely have fun. So I like to, facilitate a conversation. Not a lot of facilitation on my part, but kind of like the before, during, and after. It's pretty simple. That's our holding place, and my experience has been that these conversations can take a bit of a life of their own as well, which is great, which is totally what we're after. So if you will, those who are coming to visit would undoubtedly appreciate getting a sense for what was happening. I mean, you and I have worked together on a few different occasions. So this might be a bit tricky because, there's these multiple entry points possible, but could you perhaps characterize what it was in you or what you were experiencing that led you to contemplate even opening yourself up to bringing an outsider into your experience?
Sure, Murr. Yes. As you mentioned, we've worked together a couple of times, and if we begin at the beginning, the very first time you and I started working together, I was prior to I was pretty unhappy. Not entirely 100%, but there were big parts of my life that I didn't feel aligned with. And in particular, when you and I first started our conversations together, I didn't feel entirely happy with my work at that time. And the work that we did together really helped me to recognize things that were working in my career and things that weren't working in my career. And ultimately, I really felt I needed to make a change. That feeling of needing to make a change was always there. And ultimately, through the work that you and I did together, I came to the peaceful resolution that my career in that particular sector had reached its best before date. And in fact, I was able to, with you alongside me for the up and down journey of it, I was able to transition out of that career and now work in a completely different field. So,
cool.
Yes.
I appreciate the expression "best before date." Looking in at all the different engagements over the years, that's pretty common. And I know, looking even at my own significant changes and transitions, I wish I could say that I was always ahead of that curve. I anticipated my best before date, and like the milk that could go bad in the refrigerator, I dealt with that before I got to the point where I had a big glass of something that was spoiled. It's never been.
Well, and if I can jump in, Murr, that wording really resonated with me, because even though I was at a point of feeling unhappy in my career, best before date means there were lots of good things prior to that. And that, in fact, was true. Yes. I learned a lot from the career that I had been in, and I had worked with some amazing people. Best before date, when you said that clicked for me. It allowed all of that to maintain its value, and really just brought me to, like I say, the peaceful decision that it was time to make a change.
Yeah. I really appreciate you mentioning that. That is such an important point, is that, so significant change arrives, and whether that's change that happens to us or change that happens within us, or usually some combination. And here we are, we're in this landscape of transition. this does not invalidate in any way, shape, or form all that happened before. That, you know, without exception, everyone I've ever worked with, including yourself, of course, is all of these creations and achievements and accomplishments and milestones have all taken place up until this particular point in time. And here we find ourselves, now we're recognizing that change and transition is afoot.
Yes, and accepting it, but not without help. Enter Murray.
Well, and that's a sort of a second question is, so you recognize this is your experience, and you know, it's a big deal. It's been a big deal for me whenever I have reached out. It's a big deal for anybody else when they've reached out to invite the possibility even of someone external to your life coming to closer to your story. So maybe you could touch on how is it that you came to know that outside help would be necessary, and then, you know, how did you engage with me?
Well, I remember our very first conversation ever. And we talked for about an hour. And even Murray, at the end of that hour, there had been enough about the way we talked for me to recognize that I could trust the person on the other end. That's without meeting you. And so, as a passionate communicator, I really listen carefully to the words that people use, the tone in which they speak them, and whether or not they carry judgment in their sentences. And you never did. So that made me feel comfortable to be honest with you about what I was really thinking. People see each other's lives, and that's what we think is their life. But the true life is the thoughts that each individual is actually having about their life. And to find a person that I feel comfortable sharing those truths with, there must be trust. And so I would say that based on the initial conversations and my assessment of how you communicated, it opened a door for me to feel comfortable that I could communicate equally honestly in a place of mutual respect. Again, not feeling judged is very important, because as you share your truths or your stories, people's reactions to that can determine whether or not you continue sharing your truths or your stories. I always felt that I could. So it's as simple as I really have enjoyed and learned a lot from your communication style, continue to do that. So that's why I felt the trust. It was how you talked and how you listened and how you gently guided me to look at things that needed to be looked at. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying so. It's a reminder you can never know what's going on with the other person fully in a conversation. I mean, that's all new to me. I mean, that's really interesting. And
I would not be able to articulate at the level I have with you if I didn't feel that those details counted. And so there has to be some alignment with communication style, I believe, for a relationship like this to really burgeon, which ours has over the years. That's me. It's very important to me. There may be other aspects, you know, that are important to others. But in terms of my decision to trust and to know that I'm dealing with somebody that ultimately has my best interest at heart and a kind heart in general, that comes through my analysis, for lack of a better term, of how people talk, how they interact with other people, and certainly the actions that they carry out or don't carry out. But yeah, so I've always told you you're an excellent communicator. That's very important to me as I move forward, because it's something that I believe if everyone focused on, the world will become a better place. You know, if we get to a place where we can talk about the tough stuff together without anger, that all comes from this long process of analyzing how other people communicate, picking up the bad or picking up the good and dropping the bad as you grow, you know? So I've picked up a lot of good from you, Mur.
Yeah, well, likewise, and continues on in this moment. I learned from you.
Yay!
So we embarked on this this experience together, and undoubtedly others who are taking a peek at all of this under the hood, so to speak, would, I believe, value sort of a twofold response from you, if you will, please, is what was like was there a process, a structure of engagement together? And then the B part is, you know, I'm anticipating that if I were to engage with Murray, I'm going to be working with him for a while. We're gonna be engaged for a duration of time. So what's he like? You know, what might I anticipate? So anything that you have to offer in either or both of those regards, I believe would be really helpful.
Sure. So to the first point, what structure exists? Definitely there is structure, be it core conversations we have over the telephone, specific items that we work on together online and through a mutual journal, wonderful resources in terms of thoughtful reading, fascinating videos, all kinds of things that make me think. That would, you know, sort of roughly touch on the structure. There is timelines that are discussed, but one of the things I've always appreciated about working with you, Mur, is you always give me space if I need more time, and I often do. I'm not a fast decision maker because they can be difficult decisions to make, and I've really benefited from the knowledge that I don't have to, you know, Mur won't get mad. There's always room for honesty and discussion and a way forward, even when I've been stuck in the process and sort of withdrawn because I've hit a tough point. I've always had an entry point back in, and you're always kind about those kinds of portions of change, I guess. To the second point, what was the second point, Mur?
The second point around, so what's it like working with this guy, you know?
Oh, it's awesome. You know, it's totally awesome. Murray is, like I said, he's an excellent communicator. I know I'm looking right at you, Mur, but I'm going to speak about it in the third party. You're an excellent communicator, and you have a beautifully kind heart. Those two things in combination can only produce good things for our world. I have come to recognize, because of working with Murray, that making a change without help, for me, is not possible. I run up to the point where I know something's got to change, but actually taking it to the next step, for example, you know, changing careers as I did, as when we first started working together. That resource of having a kind and insightful guide really helps you look at what you need to look at if you're thinking of making big changes in life. So hands down, I have benefited from this relationship. You and I, Mur, know there have been 3 specific things that I have transitioned through with your help. So the process does work. It's a very fascinating ride to really look for your own inner truth. But if you look, you will see it. You might not see the full light of it all the time, but you see glimmers of it the whole way. So I would say working with you, Murray, has just been a fantastic experience in my life, and I have benefited greatly from it.
Well, likewise, my friend, likewise. I found myself, as you're expressing this, thinking, okay, so Lindsay, there's been this 3 different times. So why do you keep coming back? Wouldn't like one time, shouldn't it be liberating enough or freeing enough or whatever this is? You know, shouldn't it be enough? Like what the heck? Do you have, like, Is there something missing in the earlier time? Like, it might be worthwhile to touch on that, right?
Well, you know what? For me, maybe other people, we're all wired differently, but for me, I really have a hard time with making the final decision to make a large shift in my life, a job, a behavior that has been part of my, part of my life for decades. Those things for me are pretty tough to just turn around. So I keep coming back because I already have an established trusting relationship with you. I already know that the insights you share with me have greatly benefited my perspective on my own life and on the life of the lives around me. I already know that. So to come back makes the process of transitioning more efficient. I can't do it on my own. And if I can, it's going to take me a lot longer. So I've the process is sort of tried and true. That's not to say it's easy or fast. It isn't. Not for me. But it does ultimately get me to a place where I find that peaceful feeling again, that I've made the right decision to live a more peaceful life.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I just so you know, and those who are observing our conversation know, is like what you're describing has fully and completely been my experience of myself, where I just to touch on the fact, like decades where my ego got the best of me, and Murray, you can do this on your own. You are, look, my goodness, it's your life. Like, for crying out loud, live it and guide it and lead it and do all those things. You're equipped, and that's an interesting intellectual observation. But I just spun my wheels for decades. I not wasted. I mean, I'm not a person to look back with regret, but I observe now what could have been possible if I had had the courage I finally developed later on to reach out to and explore what might be possible through collaborating with a trusted other. So I do the same thing. Right? And so what you experience is very familiar to me intimately, and across all the relationships over time is that, if we're to grow and expand, then change and transition will come. It's as if it comes with an invitation to say, okay, there's your next opportunity to expand into the next evolution of who you are. It may not be welcomed. It's often not, because it's very uncomfortable to think, oh my gosh, I thought I had it figured out. And now something is suggesting that, yeah, I did have it figured out, but there's a new thing to figure out now. And so without going too much down that road, I really appreciate what you're saying, and I believe that so many can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, each transition shouldn't be total agony. If you have found, as we've referred, you've talked about building a team in your life to support you with different things. You're part of that team. So if you've found teammates or a teammate you work really well with, you're going to achieve the goal that much faster. It stands to reason. And certainly in my case, as I say, that's been my experience of it. So that's why I keep coming back, and probably will keep coming back as long as there's things that I come across in my life that I find a little bigger to manage than I might feel up to at that point. Help is good. Asking for help is good. So
yeah, absolutely. And again, it's no little dose of bravery to do that. I mean, we got to know each other in the beginning, and I'm grateful to know I felt the same, that there was at least an early foundation of mutual trust, and then kind of take it on faith, and you go from there and see what you can create together. So we've moved through these processes of working together. We've touched on the before and the during of it, and we happen to be engaged right now in an incredibly rich transition that you're moving through. But looking back on your earlier experiences together and perhaps touching on what you're experiencing today is through the rear view mirror, what might you be able to share with others who are, you know, are curious as to, okay, well, you know, it sounds like an engaging experience to move through and there are some meaningful elements to it, but what in retrospect? You know, is this something that sort of begins and ends, or is there anything that I could look forward to having be sustainable or lasting, or is it a beginning and an end and a beginning and an end and a beginning and an end kind of thing? So
sure, no, I can answer that swiftly. The first transition that we worked through together was very structural in my life. Specifically, it was my work. So it was one of the foundational anchors of my day-to-day activities. The second transition that we worked through together was a behavior that was not serving me and was not healthy. And so we worked through that. The current shift that we are going through is, I don't know if this is the right term, but I feel it's more cerebral than structural. Now we're getting into the meat of true nature and the possibilities that exist based on what I now know to be true in myself in terms of what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, how I enjoy spending time, how I do not enjoy spending time, what matters to me in terms of meaning for my life. Everybody's meaning is a little bit different. So as we move through this third level, I guess I will call it, and look back, I've gone from sort of, you know, big nuts and bolts that really had to change to now is almost a creative process in terms of what's coming next. So our work together and other people's experience may be different in terms of their own individual journey, but it has been that for me. This has to be dealt with before I can ever get here. And over the course of years, those have been dealt with. And now I am delighted to be at a place where the concept of true nature, inner truth, and inner peace are things that I actively work on. The beginning, I did not, Mur. I did not. Those things were not in my day-to-day reality, but they are now. So the journey has brought me to a place of, again, this sounds maybe a bit out there, but I would say the journey has brought me to a place of increased spirituality. Do with that what you will, but yeah. I now see magic in things, as you've, you know, like you've said, there's magic everywhere, Lindsay. People just don't see it. I now am starting to see a lot of those things because we've talked about them and because, you know, they've become part of my focus. That on which you focus expands. I like life better like that. That's a fun perspective to have. I want to see magic. So, you know, it's been great. I didn't see a lot of magic at the beginning of our journey, Murray. I'm sure you can recall. There was some pretty cranked up calls there from me, but now I'm starting to see that that's my choice to invite into my life, and it's welcome there.
Well, and the world is benefiting, right, from you know, coming lighter and lighter and lighter, and the world can't help but benefit from that, right? I'll touch on the fact that, you know, these relationships are formed and there's this wonderful continuity that takes place that, yes, there's been 3 different transitions and we moved through that first one to the extent I was close to your story. And then you went off and you had this more expansive experience of yourself and in your life. And we stay in touch because that's what we do. That's what I love to do. Is I can't not reach out from time to time and say, so how are you? You know, and staying connected. This friendship typically permeates the experiences. And then sometime later, a conversation might come around to, okay, well, here I am, significant changes upon me again, and I'm embarking on transition again. And then that takes place, and then off you go, and then at some time later. And so just for the listener and the viewer is, there's been these beautiful phases. It hasn't been sort of one long multi-year, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, however years we've known each other. So.
But I always know you're out there, Mur, and that's been very comforting as well. Once you know somebody like you, it's almost like a comforting resource. Just the very fact that you're offering is available, because it's really helpful. So, while I haven't always felt, for whatever reasons, we haven't always been directly engaged, the knowledge that you're out there, I find comforting.
Yeah. Well, I'm humbled and glad that you feel that way. And it's nice to know that connection exists for sure for me too. So perhaps as we wind down our conversation, our retrospective here is, change comes upon each of us in our lives at various junctures. And sometimes it's welcome, sometimes it's joyous, sometimes it has an ease to it. Often, even if it is something that we know is good for us, it can be difficult to embrace, because it takes us into places that are uncertain, and uncertainty is not usually the human bailiwick. Could you close with any advice for those who are amidst significant change and significant challenge, and undoubtedly, whether one realizes it or not, faced with significant choice? What might you have to impart to them based on your experience and our experience?
Sure. To anyone watching, I would say, if you feel in your heart or in your inside of yourself that something is not right or aligned with who at some level deep down you are, I highly recommend working with a guide, and specifically Murray, because he's the only one that I can give a formal reference to. I would work in a heartbeat. I would recommend working in a heartbeat with Murray, because to embark on that journey of self-discovery in the name of finding a peaceful existence while we walk this earth is, I believe, one of the greatest investments that you can make. I've just shared with Murray earlier, before we started the recording, that I have come to a place that, my search for inner peace really is the primary goal of my life. That's where that's how I look at things now. Anything that I invest in that helps me achieve greater understanding of myself then results in more peace in my heart, and I will continue to strive for as much inner peace as I can stuff into the rest of my life. I know it's not in every corner, but man, I want more of it. So
yes,
it's a good investment. It's like any investment in your own health. It's excellent money and time and energy spent to achieve better health. That's my advice.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you so much for taking time out of your life to have a conversation that is something that can be witnessed by others who are could simply be comforted by the fact that they know that there's kindred people out there who have charted the landscape they're going through. Whether or not take a closer look at this work or working together with me is actually quite beside the point. And so I'm grateful for your time. I always love basking in your energy.
Likewise.
I shall see you back in our work together in the journal.
For sure. Anybody who's watching, Good luck to you, and Mur, I'll see you back in our journal. Thank you very much.
Great. Take care, Lindsay.